Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series on young women leaders of the Middle East and North Africa, known as the MENA region. I'm Senator Sandy Pappas, a Minnesota, USA Senator and co-founder and executive director of Forward Global Women. My co-founder, Rena Bartal, will join us for closing comments. Forward Global Women fosters the development of peacemakers by bringing together women leaders and activists from the Middle East and North Africa region to share knowledge, grow skills that help advance and facilitate sustainable peace, security, and coexistence for everyone's well-being. Today's webinar features two brave Libyan activists who persevere against great odds in advancing the rights of women. And one of our activists who is supposed to join us, Asma, is having some technical difficulties. So we will persevere and hope that she will be able to join us. We have left ample time in our 1 hour for your questions, so please use the Q&A function for that. Now I would like to introduce our esteemed moderators. First of all, Professor Fatima Sadiki is Professor of Linguistics and Gender Studies at the University of Fez, Morocco. Her work focuses on women's and gender issues in modern North Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean world. In June 2018, she was elected president of the Association of Middle East Women's Studies, the first Maghribian to be elected to this post. Congratulations on that, Fatima. She's author and editor of numerous volumes in journal issues, including Women, Gender, and Language, Women's Activism in the Public Sphere, Women and Knowledge in the Mediterranean, Moroccan Feminist Discourses, and Women's Movements in the Post-Arab Spring, North Africa. Her current research interest is the intersection between violent extremism and gender in North Africa. Fatima Sadiki is also a public speaker in many languages and a member of many national and international scholarly and policy-making boards. Her work has been supported by numerous prestigious awards and fellowships from Harvard University, the Woodrow Wilson Center, the Rockefeller Center, Fulbright, and currently Bielefeld University in Germany, where she is a fellow. Fatima Sadiki is an active member of Forward Global Women since 2008 and serves on the board of directors. Welcome, Professor Sadiki. Next, our next moderator I'd like to welcome is former member of parliament in Morocco, Lubna Amher. She was a member of the Moroccan parliament from 2011 to 2016, serving on the Finances and Economic Development Committee, and then rapporteur of the Committee of Foreign Affairs and National Defense. Previously, she served as an advisor to the state minister on political and technical matters. Ms. Amher is an engineer and has worked extensively in sustainable development and socioeconomic empowerment of women, including youth inclusion and program evaluation for the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, and a member of the State Secretary for Rural Development's cabinet. She graduated in 2002 from Hassanal Institute of Agronomy on Ecology and Natural Resources Management. She's also a Harvard Kennedy School graduate. On the international level, Ms. Amher is active on peace and security issues. She has experiential and academic training in leadership, peace building, and women's empowerment. She is vice president of the International Network of Liberal Women for the MENA region, and advisory board member of MENA's List, an international NGO working on women's political leadership and representation, and the Moroccan team leader for Forward Global Women. She is now working on gender mainstreaming in agricultural policies and development programs with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Rural Development. Welcome, Lubna. Now I'd like to ask Professor Sadiki to take it away. Thank you. You need to turn on your microphone, Professor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Sandy Pappas. I am extremely happy to be part of this webinar, and I would like to thank the planning committee for this event and also the audience. I have the honor to introduce one of our speakers, Hala Bughaighis. Hala Bughaighis is a Libyan feminist, activist, and researcher. She co-founded the Jusor Center for Studies and Development in 2015. Jusor in Arabic means bridges, and the center is a pioneer Libyan think tank that focuses on economic development and advocates for economic inclusion of women. Hala also founded the Libyan Economic Acceleration Program, which has a beautiful acronym, LEAP, in 2018. She calls it a women's business incubator. She's also a member of the Libyan Economic Dialogue coordinated by United Nations Support Mission in Libya, UNSMIL. Prior to all this, Hala worked as a business lawyer. Currently, she works as an advisor to many donors and international NGOs. She frequently speaks at local and international events on issues related to economic development and gender in Libya. And I guess when the Asma Khalifa comes, my co-moderator, Ms. Amhir, will introduce her. So let's start the interview. Brave women, Hala, brave women from Libya. Not many people know women from Libya. So this is a good opportunity for us to hear you. Do you see yourself as brave? I am sure you see yourself as brave, but how did that come about?
Well, first, thank you so much, Dr. Fatima, for the introduction, and Mrs. Amhir. Good evening, everyone from Tripoli. I'm so happy to be here and to share some of my experience and some of my insights from working in the field. Would I call myself brave? I think I would call myself fearless. Working in a very difficult environment, in a very challenging times, you just need to be fearless so you can continue. How this came about? I mean, before I didn't start activism after the revolution like most of the civil society actors who are well known. Actually, I was at that time busy working in my own law firm, and I was really doing a good work as a business lawyer at that time. But my work in civil society came out of tragedy. It was in 2014 when my second cousin, Salwa Bughaighis, was assassinated in her house in Benghazi in the last election that Libya had. I don't claim that I was really a best friend with the late Salwa. She was almost like 20 years older than me, a different generation, living in a different cities. But before her death, we've met in Jordan, and we sat like for 5 hours, and she was talking with passion, with love about civil society movement, and trying to convince me to join the movement. And for me at that time, I was, no, I don't work for free. I don't really believe in non-profit work. Little I know that I would be in that soon. I mean, months after that. And after her death, and you know, her death was followed by series of assassination to human rights defenders, and this forced a regression in the country, in the movement, in the women movement in general, and also in the civil society movement. They all had to leave the country because they feared for themselves. And suddenly, I found that there was a silence. There was nobody talking about women's rights. Actually, they were fearing the word feminism or women's rights or rights in general. And I felt that I met Salwa at that time, and we had this open, heart-to-heart conversation for a reason, and that somehow her legacy, her passion, her dream should continue. And that's how I came to join the civil society. I left my work altogether, and I joined the civil society movement. Yes, so this is how it all started.
This is wonderful. Before I give you the floor, Amhar, just one second. Listening to you, I get the picture of Salwa because I met her in 2011. Yeah, the good work. Yeah, wonderful. Maybe Lubna has a question to ask you.
Well, Good evening, Hala. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. We're very happy to hear from you and from your adventure, courage, and fearlessness, as you said. And we would like to know about your inspirational, environment. Have you been inspired by any women to continue, as you said, because combating fear in the challenging environment you believe in, you need, more support and inspiration from women. Would it be from your country or from other countries from the region? Tell us more about it, please.
Yes, well, first it was because even before 2011 and so on, I was since ever a feminist. So I really believed in the cause. And I think this came about from, the literature from Ghada Samman, for instance, and all of you, and Fatima Mernissi. So I really recognized in a very early age that there is something wrong. And because I really like, literature and poetry and so on, this really touched my heart. And I felt that there is something. And of course, with time, you recognize it yourself. When I started to work in the civil society, I cannot imagine myself going without the support of other women in Libya. I think one of the most inspirational figures that really supporting me, and she is like mentor, I call her my guardian angel, is Dr. Farida Al-Allagi. She's a well-known feminist and activist in Libya. And she is continuously always, keeping me a company, because, activism is a lonely job, really. You always feel that you're alone. And yes, and of course, as I mentioned, there is Salwa. I think she's an inspiration to many women in Libya, not only me. And there is also my cousin Iman, who is Salwa's sister, and she's, one of the supporters. So yeah, there are many women in Libya, brave women who are maybe now decided to leave the spotlight for their own reasons, but they're really pushing for us, the one who are working hard in the field. Yeah.
Great. You stay in the spotlight. That's very good. That's more bravery there. But knowing you as a staunch activist and taking you back to everyday life, what you do every day, because it's not easy. I mean, I'm an academic, but I'm also an academic and activist at the same time, especially when I was younger. Now, what are the things that excite you in everyday experiences? Because you need that in addition to inspiration. What are those things that you do every day and that constitute a source of excitement for you? We need excitement.
Yes, I must say, I really love working with young women. And,
Okay.
for me, as, looking at, this eagerness, their willingness that they want to work despite the situation, the dire situation in Libya. They aspire for a different reality, for a different, they dream. And, this kind of spark in their eyes, their eagerness to learn, this is, I think, what really makes me continue, especially when I see an impact of my work on their lives. I feel more obliged not to leave, not to continue, because I feel that there is something there and they need the support. And I think, yeah, it's always the young people. There are the younger generation. They're always the one who keep me. I feel, as I said, I feel obliged to be there for them. And I think I hope that someday you will meet the new generation, the younger generation of Libyan women, and you will be really amazed with their bravery, their resilience, and their really, ambition to do something different. It's really what excites me and what keeps me going.
Hello.
Yes.
You've been talking about, working closely with young women, and you've been working on the ground with NGOs, etc. Can you tell us, please, what kind of change you made with these women? Did you see any incidences of your work, Because I think that it keeps us, going and pursuing our activism. When we see a sparkle, when we see a change, when we see hope in someone's eyes. So tell us more about what you saw and you felt.
As I said, I mean, Jusur, when I started Jusur, we carefully chose to work in women economic empowerment and to focus more on that, because before Jusur, there were no women invited to the economic the dialogues in Libya. You cannot spot a woman there, and you cannot really see women who are working about their work or they are starting businesses as much. And after, although that they were there, but they were always in the shadow. They were always left behind. And I think I mean, I'll proudly say that one of Jusur's successes is that we created this community where women could really speak as a businesswoman, as a entrepreneur, as an owner of a small shops. And yes, I think this is amazing. Also, I mean, as you mentioned in the introduction, I am a member of the economic dialogue that's led by UNSMIL. So it's the United Nations mission to Libya. And I'm not alone. There are 5 more women, and there should be more. So I think somehow, with our push, with our advocacy work, we see more women on the decision, not really in the decision, but at least in the dialogue and discussion tables in the economic sphere, which was lacked before our work. And we see more women now. I mean, if you talk to anyone who are the best women success businesses in Libya, they will tell you She Codes or Yummy or Mozart. These are all projects owned by women who not only managed to create business for themselves, but they also managed to create jobs for other men and women in Libya. And so I see the impact, although that it's a very short period of time, but yeah, the impact is there.
Certainly the impact, I can see it. I mean, after COVID, that's going to have a big impact. Now, but still within, before we go into other topics, knowing Libya and knowing our region very well, now in the type of job that you do, I am sure you met compromise. I am sure there were moments where you had to do something that you didn't plan for. So what could be the price that you are, I'm sorry if it's a direct question, but what could be, did you have to make such a price that you thought, oh my God, why do all this?
Because this is, because this is a direct question. I will give you an honest answer.
Yeah.
First, I had to compromise my peace of mind. Yes. Many people, especially in our region, they think that activism is you're traveling the world, you're going to networking events, and you're just doing this and that, maybe gaining more money and so on. But it's not that. Yeah. It's really putting yourself out there in the public. And as someone like me, I'm really an introvert person. This is really a challenge for me. It's not something that I want to do. And also, being also criticized, with the social media, hate speech campaigns, you feel that you are hated from people who don't even know you. Yeah. So all of this kind of peace of mind is something I compromised. And if you ask me if it's worth it, it's 100% worth it, but it's a compromise that I've made. Also, there is some times that I really hate to say this, but there is times that I wanted to talk louder, but sometimes I feel it's unwise to talk, So sometimes you keep the words in your mouth because in your heart, because it's not wise to speak it. And you need to really, you really need to be wise on how to advocate for the cause. You're not, to be able to pave the road for others. And sometimes these things, really, there is some things that makes me don't sleep at night because I really wanted to talk more or to shout louder, but sometimes you need to make these compromises in this very sensitive environment.
Hala, I couldn't agree more that activism is not a red carpet. It's not an easy, thing to do, and it's not. Sometimes you feel alone, or you feel, you want to give up. Let me ask you that. What will maybe to give us 2 or 3 biggest challenges you encountered, in your path of activism? And we would know, would like to know more about Libya, you know, because I think, of course, we have common challenges. We've been talking about that, but I believe that every country have to face, you know, their own demons, and maybe we will talk about more, you know, peace and security in Libya now. But with you, how was it? What was the biggest challenges you encountered in Libya doing the activism for women's rights?
I think one of the main challenges is really talking about women's rights. So we're always careful about the language we use, about how to approach different people. I always say that, you know, working in this field, it's like walking in a field, in a mining field, yeah, in a minefield. So you don't know where you will get yourself into with the wrong language and the wrong phrase. So I think this is one of the main challenges. Is really, you know, because somehow there is, I don't know how to say it, but, you know, they always think of, you know, I'm sure it's a regional issue. They always think of women's rights as a Western agenda, that they want us to you know, to adapt to a new system. So it was one of the main challenges, but somehow we're mastering it now. So it's fine. Another thing is it's really working in Libya, the operation. We've worked during the war in Tripoli, like for last 2 years in 2019. And, you know, to work during these times, to keep your team safe, to keep your sanity, I think it was always a challenge. It's not easy to work in the country. And I think that your question about Libya, you really need to specify about what you really want to know about Libya. But for instance, if it comes to women's rights, if you talk to any Libyan, they will tell you that women are granted full rights by the law. And somehow it's correct, you know, up to certain limit. So we have advanced laws than the rest of the region, but it's not implemented. It's just there because the country at that time, they wanted to look perfect. Libyan women are very strong. We are, I mean, it's historic things. I think this country, the women are really strong, but they like to lead from the, you know, from the back. They are like the shadow government in a sense. So if you meet any Libyan woman, you can see that they are very strong, but they don't really know their worth or how to really, you know, take the step forward and to lead for real. So yeah. But if you have more specific questions, I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Do you think that we understood that it's a problem of implementation of the laws and not, you know, written laws? Do you think that they are aware of these laws? That they know that they have rights?
Listen, most of the time, no. I've worked in so many campaigns. One of them was about the labor law. And most of the women, they didn't know that they have these rights in the labor law, for instance. Although it's a very well-written law where the first or the second article is giving an equal opportunity to women and men. So it's like a solid argument for anything, but they don't really know. We even have a clause in the law that protects women from sexual harassment, for instance. And they don't, I mean, of course, there is no implementation to how to do that, but it's there and they can, you know, use it if it's needed. But most of the women who worked or who we dealt with, they didn't know that there are these rights. And this is another issue that we're having.
Well, you mentioned the word implementation. You did mention it. It's an important word. Now, leave the law. We know the law is important, but it is what it is. But you, as Hala, how did you implement those beautiful ideas you were talking about? How do you manage to implement them as Hala in the environment of Libya? Because I know that your cousin, I mean, for many of us, she died because she defended women's rights. Let's face it. And this is post-Gaddafi era. So how do you, as Hala, how have you managed to implement them? Because I know, and you said it, that you did streamline them in society. How was that? I mean, how did you do that? I know you are fearful.
I honestly,
but
yes, I honestly,
more
I don't know
that.
how I do that.
But
yes, it's as I said, I really studied the Libyan environment, the society, the language that should be used, the way that we should, create alliance, and it's a willpower. I sometimes I wonder how I did it, but it's just that I want to do it, and I really have to do it. It's, I feel it's an obligation on me that I have to do it. And this is, I think, and as you said, I mean, I always think people like Salwa and Fariha and others who lost their lives for these causes, I mean, what the worst that could happen? Losing life, it's worth it. It's this kind of thinking that keeps me going. And as I think, but for anyone who wants to work in such environment or in a similar environment, I think it's really, really need to understand the society, to work around the cause, and to really convince people with your cause. And now nobody really question when I speak or when I am in a meeting, everybody listens, and I'm so proud of this. And they really know that I will come with a sound argument and reasoning. And this is something good. It's really building a trust with your community. And it's not easy. Many people, especially, I'm not really the typical Libyan with my outfit and so on, but it's happening. It requires patience, time, and deep understanding of your society.
A small follow-up, if you allow me, Lubna, also. Just, Sister, you are taking us into Libya. One question there that's a burning one for me. Very few people know that it's not one Libya. There's Tripoli, there are 3 Libyas, and you are in Tripoli. Right. Could you say something about that? Does it have anything to do with women's rights? This was not, I mean, I didn't plan to ask this question.
No, it's absolutely, I mean, for us, we hope it will remain a one Libya. It's different. I personally, my father is from the east and my mom is from the west, and she's from the Amazigh minority. So I am more or less multi-Libyan. I have multi-Libyan culture within my family. It is different, absolutely. So women in the east, they are, how can I say, more vocal. They're more vocals. They can see most of the activists in Libya are from the east. Women from the west, we also have many activists here, but they are more diplomatic, if I may say, in their approach. And there is the women from the south, and the south in Libya, it's really, although that it's most of the time it's sidelined and not really talked about a lot, but it's, very diverse with its tribes. So we have the Tuareg, the Tabu, and also the Libyans there. And women there are very, very, it's really rich from culture perspective. And women are really doing an amazing work there, because men are busy also in their, tribal conflicts and so on. But women are standing for their community. So I think it's really a diverse community. We do have, as I said, women in the East are more vocal. I think it's somehow the influence of the university and education there, because it was more, the law school was established in Bughaighis a long time ago and so on. So it's more, And also we have the Amazigh minority where I come from. There are women there, and we spoke about this before, Dr. Fatima. Women there are very strong. They were leaders in their community until now. They're always consulted in their, internal affairs. And as I said, it's very rich. And someday I think someone should write about the different aspect of, hopefully I will do it if I have time.
Dear Hala, talking about diversity and the richness that your country have, and the power that Libyan women have, Do you have any perspective regarding how they overcome, these differences, and how can they put together their efforts to work together as a whole, as as a network? Or do you have an institution or something that bring all these women together to strengthen their forces? And my question is regarding the post-conflict. Now that we know that lately, at last, you achieved, to have, they agreed to have a government. So what can be, the role that women can play in the post-construction of Libya?
Well, I think one of the most challenging in the women movement is that we don't really have a unified women movement. Most of the women now working, because it's a war zone, more or less, in most of the part of the country. And most of the women, they really work on their society. So they really to help their communities, to, to give services to others. But I think women really made a success in the last peace talks and peace negotiation. They managed to align together. They published a recommendation that they made, because we have representatives on the peace talks. But for that, the women leaders, they managed to have like a recommendation, and they made it like a legally a binding to the women who are representing us in the peace talks. So they cannot go there in the peace talks and talk in the interest of their parties or of their ideologies or whatever. They're talking on our behalf, more or less. And you can see this as a result of that, in the roadmap that produced by UN and the Libyan Alliance, there was an article that the government must have 30% ministers in the cabinet. And we've seen, like, we have now 5 women. It's 15%. They didn't fulfill the full commitment until now. And we're still going on. I mean, for this, the women really pushed hard, and they are doing well. It's not perfect. We don't really have a women movement. There is many differences, but I think we are there given the current circumstances. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Speaking of women and peace in Libya, can I add a small question there between parentheses? I know that Libyan women have played a big role in what is called in the media de-radicalizing the youth in Libya, because there was this big issue of young Libyans risking to become, let's say, to join Daesh and ISIS and all that. Are women still doing that? Is that something you are interested in? Since we have to focus on you, my dear Hala. Is it something you are interested in?
It's not an area that I worked on before, given that I am not really in the area where there was, I'm not really living in the area where there was the ISIS recruitment and so on. But I know that women really use their social role in influence, the youth to be radicalized. But I don't really have an evidence on that. So I don't really have much to say on this topic.
So, excuse me. So, that aside, what are the main challenges now for women in Libya, if you had to name some?
I think the main challenges is, we have many, but I think the first, as I just mentioned, is that we don't have a movement. So everybody is working, randomly, and this is really weakened the whole cause. Because if we have a movement and we have a clear vision, I think we will accomplish more. Other than that, we have the problem with the violence against women, which is not recognized in Libya, and they refuse to talk about it as if there are nothing. And this is another huge issue. And it's, as I said, we cannot really measure it because there is no data whatsoever about this. Also, we have the problem with lack of women in the security sector. Now there are more or less development interventions to enhance this, but for years there were no women in the prisons and in the detention centers and so on. And yeah, and the border security. And I think this is another issue that we really need to fix. There's also, from the economic perspective, I mean, we can spend hours talking about the women issues, but also we have the problem when it comes to the economic is that most women work in the informal sector, and nobody really do something about it. And this is another main issue. And of course, the poor political representation that we hope that this will change with the current movement. Yeah.
Maybe our last questions. Yeah, yes, Lubna, sorry.
I was about to, because we opened the debate, and of course we invite everyone to send their questions and to write them. We will do our best, to ask them to Hala. A question from many women here asking how they can help women of Libya in, from other countries as North African countries. How can we help, Hala?
I think the easiest and more approachable thing is to talk about us. I mean, I feel sorry when I see that, I mean, or jealous, if I may say, when there is a talk about women in Yemen and the humanitarian suffer there, and the women aspect, and the women in Syria and other countries. But there are, and if you go to the main webinars, you can hardly see anyone talking about the suffer of Libyan women during the conflict, especially during the last war. And somehow I felt really betrayed, that there is no one really, it's like, they're looking at us, this is a civil war that doesn't matter. They have oil and they are too spoiled and they're fighting each other. But there are real suffering there. And I think the main thing that anyone can do is advocate with us, is to talk on our behalf, especially sometimes we cannot talk from in the ground here. So we really need this support. And I think raising our voice and supporting us is it's what we really need in Libya.
In addition to that, what other advice along that line would you give Libyan women, or just the many young women from the region that are listening to you right now, from Morocco, from Algeria, Tunisia, and the rest of the Middle East? What advice?
I think, yes, I think, as I said, I think we really, I mean, I'm at the moment, I'm working on a project that's, concerning Libyan women in the public life. And we really need advice. In Libya, this is like we are in the dark, and we really need, a networking, an open door for us, and to work really with other women. And it shouldn't be, on a basis of like we really needed an international funding to help us on that. We can do it ourselves if we really believe in the cause. And I think this is what's missing. And we would really, benefit from the experience in Morocco, for instance. And it's really a North African country that we have so much in common. And other countries, like Iraq and others. I think this is, I'm fully advocating for, advocacy and networking on this. I think this is the most sustainable assistance that Libyan women can get.
Hala, do you feel like there is a disconnection between non-Western feminism and Western feminism? And by the way, what's your definition of feminism? Because I know that there's a lot of debate regarding, the definition of the word. What's yours?
Mine is very simple. I think feminism is equal opportunities. It's really asking for the equal rights and equal opportunities between men and women, regardless of their gender roles in the society. And I think this is a very simple and fair definition. This is how I see it. And I'm sure that there are many other definitions, but I think this is, at least from the Libyan perspective, yes, this is what I believe in. And I honestly don't feel that there is a big gap. Whenever I talk to a Western or a non-Western feminist, you can always find a common ground, yes? Yeah. So I think when we're talking about the lack of opportunities or the rights and so on, you will always, despite, yes, of course, it's more advanced in some countries than us, but more or less, you'll always find a common ground. And I think this is the most beauty in this cause, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Lubna and I are doing now, we are also reading the questions from the audience. So please bear with us. And trying also not bombard you with questions that are not related.
My pleasure,
try
please.
to relate.
Yeah.
Now, one question was about representation in the media. Do you think, I mean, this Libyan woman or the Libyan women you talk about, do you feel like they are represented, misrepresented in the media? What is represented in the media about women right now?
I think, yes, I think at least, as I said, I mean, if we're talking about the local media, there is misrepresentation. And if they represent us in the wrong way. There were so many, you know, but somehow, if you're talking to anyone about who is the most advocate or the vocal voices, it's always women. So women are in the media. So we have so many activists there. But we don't talk about women, as I said, media, they don't talk about women's rights. They don't talk about our issues. They don't believe in it. And it's also, I think it's a gender blind. And of course, it's because more or less it's led by men or by women who are, as I like to say, patriarchy enablers, yes? And in the international media, yes, you'll have women, but sadly, it's only the women who can speak English who are represented in the international. So you can see women in the Independent, in the Guardian, in different, you know, newspaper and TV channels, but they are only the women who can speak English. And this leaves the people who are on the ground, who's doing the hard work behind. And I think this is another blind spot, if I may say, when it comes to the media representation.
Okay. Of course, we need more, you know, gender policies. And another question is, what are some women's rights achievements in Libya? If you can give us, you know, some examples of achievements, of success stories. And can these achievements help women's rights movements in other countries, not African countries, you know, to inspire them and maybe to lead the way?
Sure. I think the most recent achievement is what I mentioned in the peace talk. It was an amazing work from the women inside the dialogue and outside, the activists outside, to push for a fair representation of women in the government, and to have it as a, you know, as in the final legally binding document, which is called the roadmap in our case. And I think this is very important lesson that can be used in other conflict areas. But of course, there was a mistake in this, and I hope that, you know, other countries or other regions can really avoid it. Is that I think usually we only talk about women representation. Yeah. So whenever there is a peace talk, we're always obsessed about numbers. So we want 20%, 30% of women. But for me, what's important is not how many women, because you can have 30 patriarchal, you know, enablers in the government. You will do nothing for women agenda. We really need to mainstream in the peace agenda or in the roadmaps or whatever they call it in UN. You really need to mainstream gender, to work it in a benefit for women, to have women in the agenda and the peace talks. This is what I think that can be used in other examples. And this is where the Libyan example has failed, in my opinion.
Yes, still about achievement and making us closer again to what is being done in Libya. Now, academics in Libya, I'm sure there are women academics there. Are they active? Is there, because I know that in Morocco, historically, there has been a close, if you want, interactional militantism between activists and academics. What is the state of this in Libya? Education, academics? Okay.
I think we do have many women in academia, but the problem is for us, it's in the academia as a whole, really. It's not really, they are really sitting in the university in their own, you know, ivory tower, if I may say, away from what's happening in the country. And I can hardly see any of them really doing a tangible work. Yeah, so it's a problem for us in the education, higher education, you know, the link between academia and academia work and the policy making. So we do have this. I think we do have many women in the academia, and I think they can play a major role if they are really empowered, right? But at the moment, I don't see a real impact for them or a real intervention.
Good. Now, building on that, I know you are based in Tripoli, but you are a much traveled young woman. And do you feel that Libya and North Africa, the Maghreb, are there any characteristics when it comes to women that are not shared by Middle East or women in the larger Middle East? Although I count Egypt as part of the bigger North Africa, but let's say, do you feel that there are specificities of North African women that are still not known? I know that are not very much researched in academia, and I am one of the people who really encourage that. But what is your feeling about that?
Yes, I think I said this before, but I think the North, I think it's unfair to, sometimes I really feel it's unfair that we talk about women in MENA, because I think it's different context. Yes, it's a different region, different people. And I think more or less women in the Maghreb, from at least my experience, I must say I only visited Tunis a lot. So my impression is really in Tunisian women. I've only visited Morocco once and never to Algeria before, and Mauritania. But I think the women there are very, as I said, very vocal. They're very strong in their community. So I think this is a similarity, but somehow they are really, they are really working in the field, they're helping and so on, but they're always in the shadow. So they don't really like to lead. But anyhow, I think women, I think more or less if it's not from the recent historical development, I think it's a matriarch societies, that what we had at least in Libya before. And I think it's the same in Tunisia and I assume in Morocco. But I think women have a very a major role, a historic role to play, a role that has been played, and now it's somehow with the radicalization in the region and the some ideological changes. I think this has pushed away. But this is like an impression. It's not like an evidence based or anything. Yeah.
I'm very happy that we are involving the audience here. Yes, your turn, Lubna. Good.
We're trying our best to take their voices, out. Yeah. And one more question is about your collaboration as NGO with other institutions or NGOs in the North African area. Do you have partnerships? Do you have common work, research projects?
Yes, I'm a founder member of the Maghreb Startup Network. It's a network of innovation and entrepreneurship throughout the Maghreb, and we had a successful event in COVID 19 times, and yes, I'm a strongly believer in the Maghreb, the Grand Maghreb area, and I think we have so much to do if we recognize our potentials and really work together. So I have very good connection and very, very good friendship and alliance throughout the region.
Okay. I see also here that I'm informed that many women have asked if Hala has any recommendations for Libyan feminist literature. Libyan feminists. Are there writers who write maybe maybe in French?
The young generation, we have really a good potentials there. They really need, and it's something that they are not taught. It's something coming from, it's a talent. They need training. And sadly, you don't read much to Libyan women. It's because they write in Arabic. And this is something that really is excluding us, because the education system here more or less is based in Arabic and English, but that's why you don't see it. But I think we have a great potential here in Libya. We do have many women writers in platform like Fasila, for instance. It's a very nice platform for young Libyan women. There's also a platform called Libya. There are many women contributing there. And you can see that there is a potential, but they need some more investment and focus. But I think, yes, and with time, we will see more and more women leading in this, I believe.
And is it developing as a literature? Is it like something that attracts people, attracts readers?
I think yes, because
online,
they're doing it in a very smart.
Excuse me, Hala. Is it all online or a mixture of online and printing?
It's mostly it's online. It's because it's the new generation way of communicating, right? But we do have a few young generation who really managed to publish some books. More or less, it's novels, so it's not really academic or nonfiction books. But yes, I think with time we will see more. Yes, I think that we do have a potential there.
Okay, maybe one last question. Yeah. Yes,
okay, let's go for one last question, and it's going to be about leadership. And you are, Hala, our leader for today, and to inspire women in Libya and elsewhere. And when we talk about leadership, we say leading by example or by action. And my question is, what does it take, to cross the line between being vocal about a cause and acting about it and making a real change in real life, a real impact?
Really,
how do you cross the line?
Yeah? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've never left Libya since I started to be involved in this thing. It's really need to show that you are here, you are feeling that you're. I mean, I think it's really about working with the community, because you could be a leader, you could be vocal, but I'm not saying that the ones who are not living in the country is wrong. But I feel if you want to be leader or to want to inspire young leaders, because this is what matters. For me, it's not about myself being a leader. It's really to inspire the young generation to take the lead, because you cannot live here forever. Yes, we are not here forever. So I think it's really to walk the talk and to feel that you are here. You're listening to them. You're talking in a simple language that they will relate to it. I think this is because I think this is also the problem with elitism. Yes, they always like to choose the fancy words, and I think this is why it's distant the people from this. I think this is at least this is my kind of leadership. It's really very simple. Just I listen to people, I build trust, and I enable them to be the next leaders. Yeah.
Okay, well, I join Lubna in saying you are our leader. Before giving the floor to Rina, I would like to end this by saying that, well, there are people who watch leadership. There are people who criticize leadership. And there are people who create leadership. You are one of them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hala, really.
Thank you.
And now I give the floor to Rina Bartal. Rina is the second co-founder with Sandy Pappas of Forward Global Women. She is a very active member of Forward Global Women, and also the chair of the committee that prepared this event. The floor is yours, Rina.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Fatima Siddiqui. Thank you very much, Lubna. I'm here for doing this. And for our guest speaker, Hala, it was a real pleasure to hear you. And I must say, hi, Sandy. Nice to see your face again. I must say that most of the time you spoke, especially while answering the questions, I sort of needed to smile. Why did I need to smile? Because you come from Libya. Some of the other people, we have over 100 attendees, ladies, over 100 attendees are listening, have been listening to you, Hala, for an hour. And I'm smiling because we all seem to have at the end the same issues. At the end, we work in informal positions. At the end, some of us do not have women's movements. At the end, the issue of violence against women is not recognized. Those are things, all things that you said. At the end, feminism is an equal opportunity. And at the very end, our world all over is managed, ruled, manipulated, and everything else you want by men. So my smile was because I have more and more convictions and understandings that no matter where we come from as women, our issues are so very similar. We might speak different languages. We might come from different religions. We might come from different communities. Some of us might have families, others do not. We might have children, we might not, but we all aspire for the same world. We all want a better world for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for whatever we leave behind. So Libya, to me, from what I heard from you, and I learned so much during this hour, is not very different from any other countries in the MENA region. Parenthesis, open and closed. Maybe we should all contact our Norwegian ladies, our Norwegian women in Norway and the Scandinavian countries. Their lives are different over there, but no comparison. We're not here to compare. We're just here to make statements that it is possible. That's my point at the end. That it is possible. We must remain with optimism and hope. And I think a young woman like yourself, a young female leader like yourself, a woman that sat here in front of 100 people, none of whom she knows, and gave a wonderful talk about your life, about the life of women in your country, and maybe women in the neighboring areas, Tunis and Morocco. And at the end, we all have the same issues, which means that the world may be, the universe may be very big, but we are so tiny inside of it. So my words to conclusion is, again, to thank you. It was an honor to meet you. I really want to thank all the people that came to join us today to learn more about Forward Global Women. What we set out to do is one thing. What we are doing is enabling women from the MENA region to meet, to speak, to see our faces, to see what we look like, and we don't look very different, to hear our voices, to experience our experiences, to live a little bit our lives, and at the end to understand that if more women would have been involved in national affairs and local affairs, each one of us and our friends and our movements in our countries, I believe the world we live in could have been a much better world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you to all the attendees and all your wonderful questions. I'm going to share the questions with the panelists, and we'll see if we can figure out a way to respond to you, and your comments are very much appreciated. I just wanted to ask everyone to please do a group photo. So if we would all look at the camera and smile, and Lily can do a photo. Your hair looks lovely, Lubna. And I think we are done. Is that correct? All right. Thank you all again for joining our webinar, and please stay tuned for future webinars on our series of the amazing young MENA women leaders. Bye.